Well, in the Western Cape High Court, Judge Daniel Tulare has found that 6 former apartheid security police officers are responsible for the deaths of Imam Abdullah Haron, who died in police custody in 1969. He says there must now be investigations into what happened. He's rejected the findings of an apartheid-era inquest that cleared the officers. The 6 officers involved were Karel Pinaar, Derek Gennis, Major Kotze, Johannes Geldnys, Spyker van Wyk and Andries van Wyk. All of them have since died. Mohammed Haron is the son of Imam Abdullah Haron. Professor Haron, good afternoon to you and thank you for speaking to us. I can't imagine how you must feel today. You lost your father in the most terrible circumstances a long time ago. This must be so important to you and to your family.
Good afternoon to you and the listeners and the viewers. Thanks very much, Stephen, for this opportunity. I think if one can think of any young boy whose father is killed in such circumstances, it's not easy to describe the circumstances. Nonetheless, of course, in my case, years have passed, and now you reflect upon that event and the circumstances and of course, and considering the fact that it was during the heart of the apartheid era, so it was difficult to sort of deal with it over the years internally. Of course, some would say go to a psychologist, psychiatrist, but I think I was just among those who just felt one can deal with it on one's own. Nonetheless, dealing it with internally basically has been the case for all of these years. And with the judgment by Tulare coming forth the way it did this morning, somewhat just opens up a new sort of life, so to speak, for one, in the sense that he basically returned to the 70 inquest, then clearly was able to make all the necessary points, of course, drawing from the expert witness report in the opening of the re-inquest, and sort of the reopening of the inquest, and in that way was able to put all the sort of ideas together and put forward his judgment. I think that really sort of warmed the heart of the family.
There's something about the generations in this, Professor Haron. I mean, as you say, it's in a way, I imagine, a sort of burden that you carried, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's something you had to carry. But your father's great-grandchildren, your grandchildren, will now know forever, as will their children, that your father was a hero. I mean, that's really important too. There's something generational about the damage apartheid did for all of us in a way.
Indeed. I think, and that is what one is sort of proud of. I mean, of course, when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we say that we don't even come up to his standard, so to speak, during the time. But we admire him for what he did and for how he managed to basically do that in very difficult circumstances. And of course, yes, indeed, us as a family, children, grandchildren will all be basically looking back and saying this is who our grandfather, our father, our great-grandfather was and basically is. But I think it's also because of the way he played his role that the community can also draw from him or appropriate him because he was an imam in a congregation, he was a social person, he was a community worker, he was an activist, broadly speaking, and in that way everybody who came in touch with him was able and can now claim that this hero was also their hero, was also their elder, was also their friend or whatever. I mean, so yes, indeed.
You had to really fight to get this verdict. You had to go to court. You had to go through all of this. I wonder, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I wonder if you feel a bit disappointed, perhaps, that you had to do all of this, that this should almost have happened automatically in 1994, that cases like this would have been reopened.
Well, what you're saying is exactly what, not that you just put words in our mouth, but that is exactly how we felt. When the TRC ended, we never went to the TRC, as you know by now. But of course, TRC members came to us to basically just speak to us and so forth. But we just felt that we could not. My mother was around at that time, and of course, whilst we were children of this great man, he had a companion, a wife, who basically had been by his side and who was pained and harmed in a very deep way that one cannot fully describe. But having said that, I think when one thinks about sort of him and the way he had played his role, I think he was just, sometimes one still try to imagine the 1960s, the suppression, the various acts that came into force, and how he was able to manage to deal with all of these, and standing out in a very brave way to network with individuals who themselves had suffered. So yes, so in terms of the timeline that we have, and thinking back, we said immediately after TRC, the inquest should have been opened. We shouldn't have waited 54 years down the line to listen to what the judge had to say. And we also would like to have heard the perpetrators. Why did they do such inhumane acts, not just to my father, but to many others who were killed whilst in detention? So yeah, it is something that we've been grappling with all over, over all these years. And we would just wonder why the state, as a democratic state, has dragged its feet to address these issues.
And I mean, it's your family, it's many others. The case of the Craddock Four comes to mind almost immediately.
Yep.
There are many, many others. Do you think it's almost been a deliberate choice not to prosecute these cases? I've never been able to understand why the people who did not get amnesty at the TRC weren't prosecuted.
A good question. My reading is partly to do with the Codesa talk, with the sunset clauses that we have not been able to have privy to read and to look at as yet. I would argue it is partly those that basically contributed, and then subsequently our own democratic leaders that either they implicated or they tried to protect some individuals whom they were trying to protect from prosecution, that they decided not to really go that route. And as a result, because of course some of my friends and families and other families who have been involved make reference to political interference. And one again asks oneself, why should political leaders do this to its very community, or more so those individuals who were killed in the past, who are now viewed as martyrs? Why do they have to do that to these individuals when they did that for the whole nation? In other words, we all wanted to be free of racism, of ethnic discrimination, whatever. And this is where we find ourselves. And so we are somewhat so bitter that it had taken so long for this to have happened. So yes, we would like it to have happened earlier, but it did not.
Professor Mohammed Haron, thank you for speaking to us on what I know is a really important day for your family. Thank you. The son there of Imam Abdullah Haron. Well.